The Seattle Seahawks last week made it clear that they believe Russell Wilson wanted out of Seattle. Wilson called the departure a mutual decision that he did not initiate. Pete Carroll says on Seattle Sports 710 that upon hearing that Russ that he wanted out, the coach tried to convince the quarterback to stick around. Says there were compelling reasons to stay. Pete says he fought for those reasons until the efforts were futile. Look, I don't know what time frame he's talking about. Obviously, last year, Russell Wilson wanted out, and they convinced him to stick around. The bottom line is, as they said last week, they knew he wasn't going to sign another contract. And the reason he wasn't going to sign another contract is they were not going to pay him what he wanted. They were paying him like a franchise quarterback. They weren't using him like a franchise quarterback. At some point, when you have a guy who expects market value every time he comes to the table, and he has every right to do that, if you're not using him like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, if the offense doesn't flow through him, if it's run the ball, play defense, and then maybe have Russ save your ass in the fourth quarter if you're down by 10 or more points, that's not using a franchise quarterback the right way. So how can you justify paying him? And they knew next year when Mark Rodgers, Russell Wilson's agent, was going to come back and say it's time for another extension, they weren't going to pay him what the market would have dictated. So they made the move now. They got more now than next year, because if you trade him next year, not only does the team that acquires him have to placate the Seahawks, they got to placate the player. So you're going to give less to the Seahawks if you have to pay the player a bunch of money. That's it in a nutshell. They never viewed him as a franchise quarterback. They never used him as a franchise quarterback, but they paid him as a franchise quarterback. At some point, with that disconnect, Charean, a divorce was inevitable. That's the truth.
Yeah, and we saw it coming, Mike, when his agent said, hey, by the way, Russell doesn't want to be traded, but if the Seahawks are interested in trading him, here are the 4 teams that he'd be interested in going to. I mean, it was obvious at this point last year that his time in Seattle was short, that if he remained in 2021, which there was some question about whether the Seahawks would try and trade him last offseason, but if he stayed, it was obvious that barring a Super Bowl victory, that 2021 was going to be his last season in Seattle, and that's exactly how it turned out. So no one should have been surprised by the Seahawks trade of Russell Wilson or the fact that he wanted out. I mean, when he had that press conference and started talking about the offensive line woes and wanting to be involved in personnel, I mean, that pretty much signaled to me that Russell Wilson was ready to go somewhere else. And he saw the success that Tom Brady had in Tampa when he went somewhere else. He saw the success that Matthew Stafford had when he went somewhere else. He wants that same chance to have that same success with another team, and now he gets to do that in Denver, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.